Okay, so every year we make gingerbread houses. This year, because of COVID, we're gonna make them individually. Obviously, because of the fact that we just went fully remote, we're not making it at school anymore, but we're still gonna go on with our plan and hopefully make these at home. So I'm gonna show you how to roll and cut your dough. I'm gonna start off showing you the traditional way that we do it every single year this way. And then we're calling in the cookie experts, Mrs. Elf Marion.
There you go.
So I just put a little bit of flour on here because I don't want it to stick, and I've already dusted this with flour as well. I'm gonna work in the corners of my wax paper. You could also use parchment paper, which is probably better, but we're cheap, so we use wax paper.
If your parents have a silicone mat, you can use that as well. That's what I use at home.
Now the silicone mat doesn't work if you're gonna try to do it exactly the way I'm gonna show you, because your parents would kill me if you were cutting it up with scissors.
This is true.
But Mrs. Marion is gonna show you how to do it all in one giant piece, I think.
Yep.
So you can see it was trying to stick. So I'm gonna get some more flour on my rolling pin, get some more dusting on here. And I like to use the rolling pin with my hands on the roller, not on here, because I feel it just gives me more control. But do it however you feel most comfortable. And I like to go in all directions so that I can keep it nice and flat and level. I'm trying to get this about 1/8 of an inch thick, which about now is where it is, 1/8 of an inch. We have our template pieces here. I've already cut them out. You will be receiving those via PDF in the email that you will, or on Google Classroom, where you will want to cut or print them out at 100% for the size. Place your piece on your dough. Then you're going to use, I like to use the pizza cutter because it gives me a nice straight edge. It's easy and it doesn't distort the shape of my house. I'm going to show you though that I like to do this door or intricate details first so it doesn't distort this area right here eventually. And you could also add windows to your house. You can draw them in yourself. If it's trying to pull at your dough, you can stipple it. But my dough's actually doing really good. Then you can go across here. My finger is being used as a leverage to keep it nice and straight. You can see my dough is starting to warm up because that's trying to stretch and stick. It could also be that I might not have added enough flour there. There we go. So if your dough warms up too much, you can always put it back in the fridge and you can work with it again later. Perfection is key when you are making cookies. And let's see how successful we will be at getting this little door piece off. I have the feeling that my dough's a little bit too sticky right now, and I'm probably just going to want to cut out a door piece separately. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to cut out this door piece separately. But that being said, I am not going to want to pick this piece off of this wax paper. There's a reason I rolled it out on the wax paper. That is so that I can keep a perfect shape. So I am simply going to cut around my house. That way I don't distort the shape by sticking a turner or a spatula underneath it. Now I can just walk it right over here to my baking sheet. Ta-da!
350.
for 12 minutes. Okay, we're gonna hand the reins over to Mrs. Marion. All right, guys, so we are going to continue cutting out our pieces. Mrs. Bland cut out the front of our house. You will have 2 roofs because they're gonna go like this. 2 side walls, a house back, a door, and some little tiny pieces for the chimney.
If you want to do the chimney, you don't have to do the chimney.
This is a rolling pin. I know we talked about this when we learned all about our supplies. If you don't have one at home, never fear. You can use a glass that has no ridges on it. The ridges on this one are on the inside, so they're fine. You can use a wine bottle, an olive oil bottle. Clean the bottle first if it's something you plan on eating, like a sugar cookie. If you're doing your gingerbread house, it's probably not that big of a deal unless you plan on consuming it. I always flour my rolling pin. My rolling pin at home, this is a school one, is actually over 100 years old. So it's like perfectly seasoned. It was my great-great-grandma's. So then I'm just gonna roll, and just like Mrs. Bland showed us, turn it the other way. You can turn yourself if you're standing, or you can turn the dough. You choose. And we're going for that 1/8 of an inch. If you're a little thicker than an 1/8 of an inch, that's okay. Your baking time will need to be extended, but you need to make sure all of your pieces are a very similar thickness, because you don't want to put them all on the pan and then make them bake at different times. That's really difficult. So you will notice I flipped my dough over. That is only to make sure that I'm not sticking on the back side. The flour will brush in and brush away, but it helps us to have a decent, it won't stick to our paper too bad. So this one's perfectly square, right? Pretty easy. And when I do cookies at home, I use a lot of cookie cutters. You can freehand. You don't have to, for cookies, I mean. We are demonstrating a gingerbread house, but just like the rest of the year, if you don't want to do a gingerbread house, and I truly hope you do, so you can be in the running for some extra credit. If you don't want to do it, you can do something else, rolled cookie, but you have to be rolling something. So then you kind of play Tetris a little bit. Let's see what fits on the piece of dough that I have rolled out. Side wall, side wall. If you notice right here, I am using the cut that I made here straight across the top of the roof for the other cut of the side wall. That's less cutting for you.
And Miss Marion's very talented. Even your teacher doesn't do such things.
I do like some fancy baking.
This is why we called in the cookie expert. You should see the cookies that she decorates.
Now
and
let's hope
makes.
that these all nicely come off. I'm gonna take the edge of my knife, just gently lift, okay? You could use a butter knife if you wanted. You want a very thin blade though, so that we don't distort it. All right, it is getting a little warm.
Maybe I should put the air conditioning back down to 60.
I am gonna steal us a piece, oops, from over here on the edge where there's nothing. This will just prevent it from sticking to your pan. Now I want to warn you, we are using wax paper because we are out of parchment paper, okay? It is going to smoke. If you use parchment paper in your oven, that is what is truly meant for the oven. So don't panic though, if we film us baking this and a little bit of smoke comes out. It also will smell like a melted crayon. That's wax paper for you. So peel away anything you don't need. Don't throw it away. We're gonna re-roll it.
And you won't set your house on fire putting wax paper in the oven.
It'll just stink.
It'll just smoke a little bit as the wax burns off the paper.
Chilled dough is the way to go with a rolled cookie because it's way less sticky.
And of course, our refrigerator is brand new, so the dough didn't get as chilled as it should because it's not completely.
How full should a fridge be, guys? 3/4 of the way full, Mrs. Marion. So you peel these up and continue on stacking them. When we come back, we will have all of our pieces cut out, our door, our other side wall, our roof twice, and then our chimney, because we're going to give our house a chimney.
So if you feel like you're not as talented as Mrs. Marion is at getting it off of here, and you would be more successful pulling it off by just leaving it on the paper like I did, go for it. So here are your 2 different methods that you can use to roll out your dough and put it onto your baking sheet. So I personally, like I said, I'm not the cookie expert, so I definitely go for the I would say cutting cookies for dummies method. All right, when we come back, you'll see more cookie magic cut out right there on that sheet. Yep.
All right, so here's our rolling pin. I said if you don't have that at home, never fear. Here's a solid-sided cup. You don't want to handle, this has a little taper to it, but not much of one. Ideally, you want one that's perfectly square, but I didn't have one in my cabinet, but we've used these before at home when the rolling pin is being used and someone else wants to roll out something, because we like to bake in my house. So same thing, get a little flour on your fingers and just give it a little rub. Okay, make sure the glass is clean, your wine bottle's clean, your olive oil bottle's clean, all of that. And you're just gonna roll. See, it takes a little more pressure because it doesn't weigh as much. This is heavy, this is not, but you get the same effectiveness. So don't fear when we're doing this lab that you don't know where a rolling pin is or you don't have one. I turn my dough a lot like that so that the sticky doesn't get pushed in too badly to our wax paper. So then I just keep rolling. Takes a light pressure, and you can just roll as many times as you need to get that 1/8 of an inch thickness. Some cookie recipes, if you're doing your own lab, might ask you to make it a 1/4 inch if it's going to be a nice thick cookie. Other cookies may say the 1/8 of an inch like this. So here we go. I'm all rolled out with my cup. No rolling pin necessary. I am going to cut out a house back on this one. I'm actually going to, because my dough is sticky, take just a little bit of flour and I'm rubbing it on the paper. You can't really see it, but that's going to help me to not have a sticky piece of paper. Take your paper off as soon as you are done cutting. Mrs. Bland and I learned yesterday that if you leave it and walk away because a kid pops into your Google Meet, it sticks really badly. We learned that. So do that. And then because my dough is so fragile, I'm going to just carefully pick that piece up and throw it over there. That's still usable. Without having to re-roll too much. This stuff down here I'm going to put in a nice little ball. Don't throw it away, just set it to the side. And then you can roll that in after your next cut. So we still need a door and another side wall. Peel off that. See, it stuck just a little bit. That's okay, don't worry. You can tap it with your finger gently, smooth it out. Okay, we're gonna have to do a little Tetrising just so our wax paper doesn't lay on everything else. If you are eating this, if that is your plan, please use parchment paper. The wax paper is gonna give it kind of a burnt wax taste, and that doesn't sound good, right? So here's our dough, still rolled out from last time. I think a side wall will fit. Here's my fresh, clean side wall that I didn't use yet. Again, I'm just gonna give him a little coating of flour and lay him on there, gently hold him down. We're not pushing, we're not trying to leave fingerprints. Roll him away. And slice those out. Now I have this one little flat piece left right here. I'm actually going to use that one because our chimney pieces, if you go the route of a chimney, are really small. So I'm just going to carefully pick him up and lay him over here. And here is my side piece. Trim, trim, trim away. If your dough is not sticky and you did it on a parchment paper or a silicone mat, you may not cut it. If it just lifts up beautifully, just lift it up beautifully. If it starts to stick, use your parchment. So I have left my tiny little door. If you were lucky enough when you made this piece over here, your door may already be cut out for you. Our dough was too sticky, so we have to actually do our door. And my 4 chimney pieces. They are little, guys. The other thing I want to stress is if you want to get really creative, you can make a second batch and you could make something else with your own shapes that you come up with. You could make 2 little houses and make yourself 2 little neighbors. I know a few of you cook with friends. If your parents allow it and you're all safe and healthy, you could cook with friends and send us a picture of a couple little houses together. That would be fun for us to see. Our goal is going to be for you to send us in pictures, and we are going to create a Google voting form, and hopefully our teachers here and hopefully at the junior high will vote and tell us their favorites, and there'll be some extra credit. So because my dough is sticky and I'm going in a circle, I'm tapping, you can hear it, almost perforating. Because if I drag, I'm gonna make my door shape weird. With your extra dough, you could make a few little squares for a sidewalk going up your path. We are gonna recommend that you put it on a paper plate. That'll be a great base for you.
And we'll show that in the next video.
Yeah. We got lots of videos to come. You don't understand how sad I was that we went remote and that we aren't going to be able to do this in person. Mrs. Bland and Mrs. Abner and I were so excited for doing that in person. And there's our little door.
So now if you guys were technically done with this at this point because you decided not to do the chimney, some of your pieces here, like this right here with this curling that way, would make your piece cook curled. So you don't want your wax paper to curl up the edges. You also don't want your pieces too close to the edge, because then they will grow into the edge and it will distort the shape of your pieces.
We've all probably experienced that with a chocolate chip cookie where it grew into its neighbor.
Yeah, you don't want them close enough to each other to grow into each other. So this
is fine.
Basically the gist of cutting out your cookies. I do also want to mention that you are going to cook your cookies at 350 degrees for 12 minutes in the center of the oven, not at the top where it's going to burn the heck, and not at the bottom where it's going to burn to heck.
You should be able to fit 2 pans side by side if you got a full pan. If you're going to stack them, you need to stagger them most likely in your oven unless you are cooking in a convection. We know this because we learned this.
And actually, you are able to fit all of this onto 1 baking sheet. So if you don't want to use 2, you can go ahead and use 1. But you have to be careful with your wax paper and your placement of your cookies.
It is very Tetris-y up in here.
Now, I at home have a side-free baking sheet. That's really good for making cookies because you don't have sides for your sides of your cookie sheet for your cookie to grow into. So you have more space. And that's what I used. We don't have side-free cookie sheets for various reasons here at the high school. You might at home. All right, we will come back with a picture and another demonstration putting this house together with frosting.
Yay, that's the fun part.